We thought Roster Mania was over. We thought it was done, but it's not over until it's over. Just like my chances of dating Ana de Armas, okay? I don't care that apparently she's dating Tom Cruise. I've still got a chance. I believe, boys. And you better believe that roster moves are still happening because Team Spirit, out of nowhere, off the back of winning Cologne, are going to sign Tenier in place of zont1x. And I think there is so much that is interesting about this move for so many reasons. Let's go through it. First and foremost, something that is, I think, very smart from Heroic is they have declined bids for Tenier in the past, but apparently they had basically a clause in the contract which meant certain teams, there was a buyout that they would allow him to go for. And I think that's just so smart. Because think about it. From Tenier's perspective, if you're an up-and-coming player and Heroic come to you and they say, okay, if Spirit play a certain price, we'll let you go, you're going to think to yourself, great, I have the chance of progressing further forward. And players always believe they can be the best. So if you put this in there, you give them the chance. And if Tenier ends up being good enough for Team Spirit, you've got some good production out of him. And you've got some good money for him. Let's be real. We'll get into that later. Replacing zont1x. Now, this is also interesting because they've just obviously had Zwei come in for Magix. And you would think this is a move that they could have just made in the offseason we've just had. So I think that's already a very interesting thing to think about. Why is Spirit making this move now? I think there are a couple of reasons you could think about. Firstly, I think there's a question of, did the team know this move was going to be made before Cologne? And I think the answer, it might have to be yes, right? And I think maybe that could just take the pressure off the team and zont1x, and sometimes that makes players weirdly just play better. But it would not surprise me if that's the case, because I think you would not win Cologne and then suddenly be like, actually, yeah, let's switch it up, right? That doesn't really make sense to me. So I think maybe this was a move they'd already decided, and I think it maybe has to come down to Zwei somewhat. Because I don't think he looked that good, even though they won Cologne. And I don't think he looks that comfortable, and he's had to change some of his roles. And I just wonder whether they assumed Zwei would be able to adjust way quicker than he did, and that he'd be able to adapt to different roles, and that hasn't really happened. And now they're thinking they've got to make another move to make Zwei comfortable as well. That has to be something in the back of my head, okay? Now, secondly, we can get into, okay, obviously, here's the team, rank 3. They were able to keep Miles in the final, a good win for them, and it's not like zont1x played badly, so why is it zont1x that they're getting rid of? And again, I have to come back to the fact that I think it's because you can't get rid of Zwei because you've just signed him. I genuinely think that. They think that there's upside in this guy, and so they're going to have to go ahead and get rid of zont1x. And if we're just looking at Tenier quickly, which I think we should, okay, I've been pretty proven on this guy. Like, this clip against FaZe is what really sold me.
Youngstar dinked up, brought down super low. That's a crazy shot from Tenier, but he's going to need a couple more. Oh my god, he does have it in him. All 3.
You know, that was up there. I was liking that. Okay, I was like, okay. I see something. I see something. The aim was crispy. That was a couple of nice shots. But 1.5 million is the rumored price tag. And Heroic, dude, these guys just make bank for fun, man. They just make money for fun. And I also think something people aren't going to talk about here, right? If this transfer fee is correct, guys, apparently you sold Kiyosuke for like 2 million. Right? And you've yourself said, actually, well, Falcons have said it actually wasn't close to 2 million. It was less than that. So what, you're really signing Tenier for like a similar price that you sold Kiyosuke for? Like, if you were just going to go ahead and make roster moves anyway, would it not be worth just keeping Kiyosuke? Right? Like, if you had the option, Kiyosuke or Tenier, who would you take? I don't know, man. I think I know where I go with that. So, yeah, listen, I like Tenier as a player, but I think questions have to be answered there. I do think we've got to wait to see whether anyone comes out and agrees that this was the fee, or maybe people will come out and say, actually, it was a bit lower, and then it could make sense. But still, kind of wild. Kind of wild. Okay, let's get into roles. I think this is the big thing here we need to look at. You can already see here the positions database by Nero. He's updated it. Shout out to Nero, by the way. This is great. So you can see here, for example, Donk way overperforms the roles that he's in. You know, Shiro slightly better than most AWPers. Zwei, his stats are still, I think, partly from his old team, so I'm not going to look at those too much. But you see zont1x, on CT side, he was overperforming the average player in his positions. On T side, slightly underperforming, while Tanir has been overperforming even more on CT side compared to the roles he has, and then also overperforming really well on T side. And I think that is an important point here. We'll get into the fact that I think the sleeper biggest upgrade this could be for Spirit is that T side. Because honestly, on CT, I don't think zont1x was doing much wrong. I actually think he's a very good player on CT. I think it suits his game very well. You just put him in a position and say, try and get a couple of kills, and he'll just do it more often than not, right? As that sort of anchor player a lot of the time, he's so solid. And if we look at roles, here's the interesting thing, right? People kind of billing Tanir as this player who can come in and maybe like take sort of zont1x roles and sort of Magic's roles. I think that can be true, but I also think we have to point out that he's basically been the main man on this heroic team. And also, some of the roles he plays are basically just like donk roles right now, right? And I think that's changed a little as heroic have evolved, but still, it's not going to be like a one-for-one easy plug and play, right? And the thing that I think is important here is that I do think Tanir is quite a versatile player, so I don't think it matters too much for him. But I think that Zwei is the one who's come in and his positions have changed and it's messed with him a bit. And I think this could really help him get back his roles to feel more comfortable again, because I think he's a bit more of a limited player than Tanir, who I just think is very good all round, and raw mechanics will carry him a lot further. So you look at these roles, right? On CT side, Ancient, Tanir is playing mid. Well, that's where Donk plays. So you're not playing there. zont1x was playing as the A anchor. Do you put Tanir as the A anchor? Yeah, maybe. I mean, Zwei's currently B anchor. Chopper's in cave. Like, that could end up being a weak site. I'm not sure I'm fully sold on Zwei. Do you want to put Tanir over to B? Like, already there's questions. Then on Dust 2, again, Tanir, pretty active position. He's playing in CT. That's where Chopper's playing, as that sort of rotate option. So we've got to consider, like, where does he go, right? Does he take B anchor that zont1x was playing? I mean, he could, but I don't know if I'd want him there. I feel like Zwei might have to go into more of these anchor roles. Maybe that makes more sense. Then again, going on to, say, Mirage. He plays connector. Like, obviously Donk's playing connector, right? I think this one can be okay because B short is a position where you're going to be helping mid. You're going to get a lot of action. And I do think in general, for me, Tanir is a bit better as a player who is in these more active positions. I feel like he's someone who likes to play on the front foot. He likes to be involved sort of more in the middle of the map. So I think that can work fine. He can play B short. I think that works out. Then over on Nuke, Tanir's playing around Squeaky. That's where Chopper's playing. And again, you're seeing a couple of these Chopper overlaps, which I also think are pretty interesting. Because Chopper is not a good fragger as an in-game leader. Let's put it that way. He's not great, right? Like, he's maybe okay compared to other in-game leaders. But for me, compared to his tactical adeptness, like, I don't think his calling is so good that it makes up for his fragging being eh. Like, I think his calling is eh, and his fragging is eh. So I'm like, okay, what are we doing? You're just like eh, right? Unfortunately. But I do think the question is, does Chopper feel like he needs to play these positions? Does he feel like he needs to play Squeaky on Nuke because he wants all the information to be able to call things correctly? Or is he willing to maybe give up his position and play more towards ramp so that Tanir can be more active towards Squeaky and maybe Yard? Because I think that could make a lot of sense, right? It's tough to say. It's tough to say how you go with it. On Overpass, again, Tanir playing B short. It's actually currently where Zwei plays. zont1x was playing Monster. So I think that can be fine, realistically. Short and Monster, like, you're already playing in tandem anyway. You can probably slot in there okay. And then, on Train, playing towards A main. Again, actually another donk position on CT side. And zont1x is playing as the B anchor. So again, I think Zwei might switch around slightly, and then Tanir might maybe play Ivy, and you get like a lot of potential moving pieces. And I also think Chopper should consider, do I want to move around to make people comfortable? Because we're not expecting much out of him anyway, right? So CT side, I actually think this is kind of curious because I think zont1x was in not great roles and was actually doing a very solid job. I think T side is where it gets interesting though, because for the longest time, that's where I've had the biggest issue with this team. And I think on CT, realistically, I trust Tanir to be adaptable enough that he can slot in and make someone like a Zwei comfortable, who I think is maybe a little less versatile. T side, though, I do think this is where things get interesting. So you can kind of see, like, Tanir on Ancient, B Extremity. And listen, T positions are a little more, like, fluid anyway, right? You're not defaulting every round. Oftentimes, it's more just general vibes, like, are you an early round player? Are you a late round player? I'd say that Tanir is kind of like that guy who's, like, pretty willing to be aggressive in the early moves, and then he kind of likes lurking a little bit after that. And I really think that can make a big difference for this team, because zont1x, I think, was kind of a guy who would play just away from the team, but he would never really, like, do a great deal, right? It's not like he would be like, okay, I'm making a move here that's going to win us the round. I've always felt like zont1x works best in a system where the calling is very good and he's just told to do his job. And I just don't know if that's actually the right fit for Spirit, the more I think about it, because I don't think Chopper's calling is good enough to make that work, right? I don't think zont1x is able to take advantage of rotations enough or make those moves and really be proactive. I think he would need the team to be doing more elsewhere to be able to make the most of him, which is actually why we'll get into where I think he could land later, but I think Na'Vi should be sniffing around zont1x. I really do. But we look at the position. So, okay, A Extremity on Ancient, right? That's, you know, definitely like a position I think could make sense. Like, again, you know, coming in and seeing him switch there for zont1x. Yeah, I think he could be a little lurky. You know, lower B on Dust 2, that's where Donk's currently playing. So, again, you got your issues there. Mid Brawl on Mirage, right? Going out mid, that's just Donk shit. I'm sorry, you're not getting that. Outside on Nuke, again, that's Donk shit. So you see, like, currently he is getting a few of those spots where it's like, you are the guy who is making the move and, like, is in the most important area of the map, right? But he's also sometimes playing these lurky roles, like on Overpass, right? The B Extremity player just staying over there sometimes and lurking, right? So I think that what this shows me basically is I would say Tanir is an adaptable enough player. And I almost think part of the reason he's playing some of these positions on Heroic is because he's quite clearly the best player on that team. And you have to put him in some of the most important positions. I think what we will see, which I think will work really well, is Tanir will probably bring some ability and ideas of his own to just come in and make more things happen on T side and just be way more active than zont1x. And I think that's actually going to be huge for this team. Because I've said, I don't think Spirit win enough rounds just off of Chopper's calling. But if you add Tanir, maybe you don't need to. That, I think, is honestly going to be the biggest difference. I think it's that and the fact that I think Zwei can maybe get more comfortable because he's always someone that struck me as being a very controlled player. And having, like, solid aim and solid fundamentals, but not wanting to get into those chaotic positions. And I think we're seeing him get put in those, and he's struggling because of it, right? I want to look at the numbers now, okay? I don't want to look at... Oh, yeah, I do. Okay, yeah, these are the numbers, right? 19 maps played. This is very recent stuff for this lineup. But you can see that if you were just looking at the numbers, you would say, Donk's great, Shiro's great, zont1x is fine, Zwei, and Chopper, like, a bit, right? Is what you would think. You actually look here on CT side, 1.16 rating for zont1x. In his positions, that is genuinely very good, right? Like, this is a guy who on CT side for me, he just does his job so well and so solidly every time. And just in general, Spirit's numbers are kind of all good on CT side, right? Like, these are actually very good numbers. I think they're just a very good team on CT. It's T side where they've had their issues, where Donk is still there. Shiro drops off a bit, as you'd expect. It's a pretty big drop-off from zont1x, though, and this is what I'm saying on I don't think he actively does enough for the team on T side. And again, I don't think that's his fault. I just don't think it's a good fit for him on this team. I think that on a team with, like, a better in-game leader or a different style of in-game leader, I think it would work well, but I don't think it works here. This way, again, numbers, and Chopper, he's not a great fragger, let's be real. We know that. And again, we look at the win rate numbers last 3 months. Spirit's round win percentage, it's really up there. And on CT side, it's one of the best. It's actually higher than Vitality. On T side, it does slip just a little, you know, like below Vitality by a decent bit. It's not crazy, but it's not perfect. And here's the difference, right? We look at Tanir's numbers. Do we look at Tanir's numbers? Yes, we do. Okay. Last 6 months, he has a 1.18 rating overall. it's the same on T side and CT side, basically. Dude, I think that is so rare, and that makes such a difference. And I think that is the main thing here. I really do think this can solve a lot of those issues that I've had for Spirit on T side, because I think he will just win rounds sometimes. Like, he will go in early somewhere in the map and just make something happen. Or he will, halfway through the round, decide to activate and say, okay, I'm going to do something because I don't know how we're going to win the round right now, and I feel like I need to make a play. And zont1x just naturally would not do that enough. Right? Now, here's the thing that I do think is interesting. I don't even know if I want to frame this as Tanir versus zont1x. I almost want to frame this as zont1x versus Zwei. In my head, I'm sitting here kind of like, could zont1x just kind of play the positions that Zwei is now going to play? Could that work? Could he just be like, on T side, kind of just a more supportive guy? I don't think he likes to be too active anyway, so he can just go around, maybe try and help with nades, maybe just kind of be that more supportive player. Maybe sometimes have to run in first for your teammate to trade you. And then on CT, you just put him in the anchor spots, and you put Tanir in the more active spots. And you have Chopper as another anchor, and it feels like that could work, no? That's the thing that I'm so curious about, is that if it was possible for zont1x to play like that, then I kind of wonder, because I'm not sold on Zwei fully. I'm really not, right? I think that Zwei, coming in here, now that if he's going to get better roles and like he's going to get roles he's more comfortable in, I hope it works. I really do. But I think he was already solid on his old team, but this is like a big step up. And I think that the main thing is we've just seen in some pretty big tournaments that zont1x just has that bit of experience and has that solidity and calmness about him in big moments. Right? I don't think he's always had that, but I think he was just starting to get there. I think he was just starting to get to that point. And now it feels like you're bringing Zwei in, who I think is probably going to have a bit of time to get up to speed. I do have to say, overall, I still think this is a nice upgrade for Spirit. And I think it's mainly just that T-side factor. I really think there'll be a decent T-side team now. And I think it's just because you already have Donk and now you have Tanir. And you just have more ways for players to win you rounds. And Tanir is naturally more active. And I think that just works. And so I like this move for Spirit. But I think it is interesting as to why they've done it now. I also think on the heroic side of things, for what it's worth, listen, they'll take their money. They'll reinvest it. They'll find some new guy and they'll be fine. But in the short term, they're bringing back xFloud, who I think was always like a good player for their level. I think it makes sense to bring him back into the team. And they've just got to hope they can keep refreshing. But it is going to screw them for this season, you would think. And they were already that team sort of on the verge of not always like making it to events and not playing that many tournaments. And this is probably just going to screw their rankings even more to make that even harder, unfortunately. Other thing I will say on Tanir, I actually think, like, earlier in the year, he was doing even better. Like, at the start of the year, I really liked what I was seeing from Tanir, right? You can see some of these ratings very high. If we just put it onto LAN, again, like, you know, Dallas here, you know, this Mesa tournament, he did very well against, yes, weaker competition, but still. And then, like, coming into Cologne, Heroic, I think as a team, they got a bit worse, and so that's part of it, but it does feel a bit like Tanir's peak in form was like a few months ago, 3 or 4 months ago, and now he's slowly dipped slightly. I don't think that's a big deal, though. I think coming into a team like Spirit, it'll make a big difference. And I think he can get up to speed quite quickly on this team. I really do. I still think the main issues for me are Zwei and just Chopper's calling. But I always thought in the past that the way you improve a team's T side is by changing in-game leader. It felt like that was the main way you had to do it. What I've now realized on Spirit and what I think can work is maybe they don't need to change that in-game leader, which is what I was always thinking. Maybe bringing a more active piece in like Tanir, a more talented player in, is going to make the difference itself. And if it does, man, I think Spirit actually become very scary. Only other thing I should say, actually, it's not like Tanir has that much experience, guys. Like, at big events, he doesn't have that much experience at all. He's played a couple, right? Dallas, kind of a big event. Pro League from a while ago. And then Cologne, he played a couple of maps, right? So no real, like, stage experience especially, right? 7th to 8th at Dallas. Yeah, you've not really played in a crowd. So I think it might take him a little bit to get up to speed. And it leaves Spirit in a weird position where they've just won Cologne, and now they might not actually, you know, get this up to speed that quickly. Maybe it will take him a little time to get used to playing on stage. And then you're actually just like not having that incredible start to the season you could have. Oh, also, obviously the funny thing is that Spirit are playing Heroic in about a week from now. And Tanir will still be on Heroic for this event. He's joining after the Esports World Cup. So that'll be fun. We'll see if Tanir can carry Heroic against his new team. But yeah, I think overall an upgrade. Exciting to see, but maybe it will take a month or two to fully see where it lands. Thank you guys for watching. A lot of interesting stuff on this one. I'll catch you next time.